This is the LowcoSports Lowdown podcast. Here are your hosts, Justin Jarrett and Wes Kerr.
Hey, Loco sports fans, welcome to another edition of the Loco Sports Lowdown. I am Justin Jarrett, joined as always by Wes Kerr, and we've got friends waiting in the green room. Well, we had two. We lost one to internet connection, but hopefully we'll get him back because we're going to talk some North-South Touchstone Energy Bowl, the Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl, officially, colloquially known as the North-South All-Star Game. South got the dub. A bunch of Loco guys contributed to that. We're going to talk with our friend Ian Garrett about that game and everything that went down this weekend up in Myrtle Beach. And we are efforting some of the stars. Zion Dobson was with us. He's going to try to rejoin us. Kayvon Chisholm and KJ Chisholm were also trying to get on if we can get them. And it looks like Zion's back with us. So, and then we'll talk some hoops and wrestling in the back half of the show. But Wes, how you doing, man? I saw you this afternoon. So, you don't really have to update me, but let the people know. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah, great to be talking with you after a busy weekend. We got to go over the USCB and see a couple more wins for the Sand Sharks, and it was busy, throughout because a ton of Loco high school hoops going on. I had a couple of nice wins by some of our squads. And then over in Myrtle Beach, we had a lot going on the football field as our All-Stars North-South game going on. Got to see some of our area's best play with the top seniors from South Carolina. So, congratulations to them and all of them showing out in that game. Zion catching a touchdown pass, and everybody who came from the Lowco who was in that game made some plays. So great to see that. Awesome culmination to see them put the pads on for their high school career one final time over there to finish out what's been a successful season for all of them. So that's a really nice experience, and our friend Ian Garrett, we'll talk to a bit later, does a terrific job setting that whole thing up with all the logistics and all the planning, all the events they get to do. It's a really fun weekend. Of course, there's a game, but there's a lot of so much more that goes into it. So definitely excited to hear he had to say, but a fantastic experience for those young men.
Yeah, no doubt. And on that note, let's go ahead and bring in Ian Garrett and Zion Dobson, who were both at the game on Saturday with very different jobs. Fellas, always a great weekend. I have not been to one in person, but I know it's just a great culmination of, like Wes said, of the great careers that all these young men have had. And Zion, I'm really interested to hear your perspective as somebody who got to have that experience. Obviously, a Mr. Football finalist as well. So had to be just a really special weekend for you. And then to catch a touchdown pass in the game had to be pretty cool too. So just tell us about your experience as an All-Star.
Sounds
got a little lag out there.
Very wonderful experience to wake up 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah, we got you. You're just on a little delay. You got me, Z? Yeah, he's having trouble with his rural broadband. I keep harping on it.
Hello?
We got to work on this rural broadband situation. You good? Yeah, we can hear you. It's just on a little delay. So go ahead. Hampton County, baby. Well, Ian, while we're waiting on Zion to connect there, you got to see all these guys from the Lowco in person. We mentioned Zion catching a touchdown pass. KJ Chisholm had a really productive game on defense, as did Kayvon Chisholm, and Jeremiah Curry also had a couple of tackles. So I guess tell us a little bit about how it unfolded and how the Lowco guys were able to contribute.
Yeah, it was really funny. And look, I know my audience. I know who I'm talking to right now. So I'm going to start off with my fun Zion story. So one of my jobs for the game is I am responsible for lining up the Mr. Football finalists. I have to do it about 2 weeks out, make sure that they know when they're supposed to be there, what the protocol is for getting them on the field and everything. And so I'm standing there with the other 4 finalists, and one of the parents turns to me and says, "I thought there were 5 finalists this year." And I said, "There are." And I said, "The 5th one is standing right over there in wearing number 80. And it wasn't but 45 seconds later that he catches that touchdown pass. And I mean, it was like set up perfectly, because I turned to him. I said, yeah, he's the one that just caught that touchdown right there. So, it was really cool, because I'm walking, obviously these larger than life high school kids. I mean, Josiah Thompson is 6'7", 390. Watson Young is, 6'5", 280, 290, somewhere in that range. These days, you're talking about a Carolina and a Clemson recruit. I walk him onto the field, and then Rob Hanna is waiting there. He went and grabbed Zion for me, and then we got them all set up in the chairs at halftime, right after we did our Hall of Fame stuff. So, it was just it felt like a really perfect and fitting way to get him in with those other four guys who were all selected for Shrine.
Yeah, have him catch the touchdown pass and then hustle on over, right? Good stuff. Ian was just sharing that story with us. Zion, you got a better connection now. We'd love to hear more about your perspective and your experience this weekend.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and tell us what you were going to tell us earlier.
Well, it was physically challenging, and it was very fun to do what we love to do for another 5 days. Our schedule was basically wake up 6:30 in the morning, be to breakfast by 7. We'll get like a little downtime sometimes, and then we'll have to have like a 2-hour practice in the freezing cold early in the morning. But it was all worth it in the end when we got the 28-8 win over North. I think our team our team clicked together very fast. We all played together like we knew each other for like 3 weeks already. It was a very fun experience.
Yeah, great to finish off with win as well. And how cool is it to not just be there, but to be there with one of your teammates in Kayvon Chisholm, who was one of the captains for the South team.
It was very amazing, especially when he was named one of the captains. That was like one of my most proud moments of the whole week. I mean, he deserved it after all the hard work he put in all week. I mean, him being there just made me feel more comfortable for where I was at, and I mean, yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, it had to be cool to be there with your new brother, the brotherhood of Hampton County. We haven't had a chance to talk with you since the season wrapped up, and obviously didn't end the way you guys wanted with the game at Oceanside Collegiate. But I'd love to hear you reflect just a little bit on how special this season was. We talked about it throughout the year, but just the coming together of the two communities and the run that you guys went on, and I think more importantly, just the bond that you formed had to be pretty incredible experience for your senior year.
Yes, sir. It was a very, very, very how can I put this? Extraordinary season. Not just how I did the season, but how we all did the season for a team that just came together with their rivals. I mean, not many people would expect it for us to go 12-2, and it was very, very. It was a very memorable and wonderful season.
Yeah, really, really proud of what you guys accomplished in year one for this Hampton County program. But Zion, one chapter ends and another one is on the horizon. So, tell me about what's next for you and where the recruiting process is headed at the moment.
What's next for me is college football for sure. But as far as where I want to go, I don't really know yet. I'm just being patient and gonna take this next month and a half slow as possible, and just keep being patient and keep working and waiting on my turn.
Ian, he just got an offer from our neck of the woods, Independence Community College. He also has Ottawa, Kansas. So I mean, that's our part of the country there. So they've taken notice. But I did want to talk a little bit more about this weekend, and a couple of your younger teammates who are going to try to carry the torch were part of the Joanne Langfeet showcase. And that's another thing that you guys have added, Ian, that I think has really gotten a lot of attention for some of the younger players around the state who are trying to get their name on the map. And Zion, I think you took part in that last year, right? And what's that event meant to? Oh, we lost Zion, but Ian, could you tell us a little bit more about that underclassmen showcase and from your perspective, what it's done as far as helping some kids, start to get on the radar?
Yeah, I think you just hit the nail on the head. And when we're picking the spots for Joanne Langford, we are really looking. You see a lot of the underclass events around the country, and they lean very heavily into the 4 and 5 star kids, and they gotta have those dudes in their game because otherwise their event isn't legitimate. And we've kind of gone the other direction. I'm not saying that we don't invite some of those kids and we're not looking at them, but what we're trying to do is see how they compete in an environment when they have no prep time. There is a 7-on-7 component to it. And I will tell you that that event last year is what put McKendry Douglas from Hartsville on the map. McKendry just played in our game on Saturday. He actually threw that touchdown to Zion. And
Right.
when I tell you that a pass that he made last year, it's raining on us. It's not exactly the greatest weather conditions. They're playing on slick turf at Doug Shaw Memorial Stadium, and he rips into a pass, and you could just hear the rotation of the ball. This is a kid who plays in a split T offense. Everybody knows that Hartsville is going to have these dynamic running backs, and here's the quarterback of that system throwing a pass. I tell people that story all the time because we don't take credit for what McKendry Douglas or someone like Zion accomplished, but we take a lot of pride in knowing that if we put you in this environment that is not very friendly, it's not conducive to huge performances. And when kids show out at Joanne Langford, we know that there's something special coming down the pipe. We expanded it out this year. Among the 150 kids, we had a handful of freshmen. We had a bunch of sophomores, and then obviously we had a ton of juniors too. If you didn't see the retweet off of our catapult data earlier today, there were 5 different kids who ran 22.5 miles an hour at some point during the Joanne Langford. These are all kids that have time coming back. Just to give you an example of how ridiculous that is, last week, Tyreek Hill for the Miami Dolphins on one of those long touchdown passes that he caught hit about 21.7 miles an hour. Okay, we're putting these kids in catapult vests. We are doing some things that are going to favor speed. I mean, we had him run a 60-yard dash. No kid is ever running a 60-yard dash in a game. He's never going to have nobody trying to tackle him in a game. But we wanted to see what some of these guys could do. And sure enough, it's a wide receiver from Christchurch who ran the fastest time of the day. I think it was 22.6 miles an hour at one point. It was probably during the 60-yard dash. We had 4 other kids that ran, and they're absolutely flying. We get that data from those catapult vests. Well, now what we're doing is we're rolling that into our Palmetto Combine series, which we are going to be expanding this year as well. It's not going to be the Palmetto Combine. It's going to be the Carolinas Combine. Why are we doing that? It's because we're expanding it into North Carolina as well. We're actually going to do a state versus state competition during the combines in April, and we're going to start using that data, everything that we get and what the coaches see. It's now going to be rolled into, okay, if you go to Langford, then you go to the combines. Now you're eligible for North, South, and Shrine Bowl next year. And those are kind of that's kind of the building block and how we're approaching all that. And oh yeah, in the meantime, maybe we help some sophomore from some tiny school in rural South Carolina get his name out there. It's absolutely huge. You mentioned Zion. You asked him about recruiting. I can tell you that the number of college coaches I talked to last week during practices, trust me, they know Zion's there. Some of the transfer portal stuff will calm down in the next 3 and 4 weeks before the February signing day. Zion's not going to be sitting around waiting to see if anybody offers him. I can promise you that. Between me and him, we ran for 2,574 yards this year. So, trust me. People know who Zion Dobson is. 40 touchdowns at Hampton County. lower state championship game. They only, they lost to the team that went and won it. They know who he is, So
who won't be in that classification ever again?
No, they definitely won't. There'll be some news probably tomorrow. On some of the realignment front, we're expecting the classification information to come out next week before winter break, and so these are some of the things that people have been just so absorbed in talking about. Nobody was talking about that last week at North South with all those dudes we had run around. Zion said that they were practicing like they had been playing together. I'll back that up. They were out there throwing hook and ladders in practice on Wednesday afternoon and Thursday morning. They only get 5 practices, and only 4.
Was anybody lined up off sides?
It was a solid 4 inches behind the line of scrimmage. So too soon, Justin. I mean, too soon. We're talking about the Chiefs.
I mean, fellow Chiefs fan, it's misery loves company.
Suffering Chiefs fan, but hey, 2 Super Bowls in 4 years, I'll take it. So Zion.
Don't count us out of this one yet. Nobody's that good.
But
San Francisco's pretty good, but
yeah. They might be there right now, but Ian, just talk about what was like to see Zion Thompson in person this weekend, and just describe your thoughts on just Zion Thompson winning Mr. Football, which Zion was also a finalist for.
Yeah, I think Josiah, was probably, if you were to ask me in October when we released those names, I probably would have told you that Josiah was the favorite. He's a kid that's been a starting left tackle at one of the predominant power programs in the state since the very first game of his sophomore year. He was a reserve his freshman year. Josiah has great grades. He is a monster human being. Like I said earlier, he's 6'7" and 290 pounds, and he never stops smiling. And he's got this mouth full of braces, and he's just the nicest kid. And all the times that I've talked to him, I did ultimately believe when I released the finalists back in October that he was going to win out of those finalists. Does that take anything away from Watson or Zion or the other guys? No, absolutely not. I mean, it's just a lot of times the committee is looking at, college commitment's a big part of it too. Watson Young was committed until Appalachian State until last Sunday when he finally flipped and decided he's going to go play for Clemson. I can't imagine what the conversations with his dad were like on that front, because his dad was a Mr. Football. His dad's the second command of the Clemson athletics department, played at Clemson. I mean, they were beating down his door pretty good, and whatever it was that changed his mind too. I mean, you're talking about two guys that between the two of them have started somewhere in the neighborhood of 92 games at left tackle at the high school level. So, I really enjoyed the entire week. I'd be lying if I said that it isn't exhausting. It was about 80 hours just from Monday afternoon when we did our first staff meeting when they came in. And I got home Saturday, probably about 6:30. So, I mean, it is long and it's tiring, but between Joanne Langford, between watching the kids go to Target and take disadvantaged youth shopping, this is,
that's the good stuff, man.
And it really is. We had our sponsors dinner on Thursday night at the train depot, and it's a lot of fun. And we also had the passing of the torch with Scott Early being named the new executive director of the South Carolina Athletic Coaches Association, and taking that on. He can no longer be the face of North South, and so that was kind of this week too. So we had kind of the swan song for Shell Dula in the last few days of him being the executive director. We had Scott taking over for him, and now we've got Neil Smith, who is now going to be the game director for the Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl. Obviously, Neil and I work very, very closely together throughout the year between the combines, Joanne Langford, North South, Mr. Football, and And, so it was a very emotional week because we had all of this kind of transition all happening at the same time. Scott gets his final board approval to take over the SCACA, which means that Neil is automatically approved to be the new game director. And so you have all that going on. You have all these kids that are just trying to take advantage and suck the last few moments of their high school football career, out of their days. It's a lot, and it's, like I said, it's exhausting, but it's very, very rewarding.
Yeah. Yeah, I always love those culminating moments in careers. Those are the emotion, I think, is what makes it so great. I mean, it's the more emotional it is, the more meaningful it is, and that's what brings us back all the time, I think. So, well, while we have you, any more thoughts on the charter, the multiplier, we'll call it, and there's been a lot of talk about, oh, well, it's going to do this, it's going to do that. I think there's a lot of, we don't really know until those numbers come out, because unless you're privy to enrollment data for all those schools, I mean, you can't really say. But what are some of the maybe unforeseen impacts that you see, and how far do you see some of the charters moving up?
Yeah, I think, I think that when you're talking about Oceanside and Gray,
Right.
when you're talking about even Atlantic Collegiate here in Myrtle Beach, you're going to see a wide range of what the impact is. One of the things that haven't come up, it hasn't come up a lot publicly, maybe because it's not sexy to defend the charters or the privates, or to even give them their say, is Southside Christian was walking out on their game nights with 24 or 25 kids dressed out. There needs to be a multiplier. They should be playing up a class. Just my personal opinion is that the multiplier had to happen. But when you start talking about the possible appeals, that's where you've got to have kind of a forgiving approach to it, because we have to recognize that, marching Southside Christian out against someone in the upstate, let's say Chapman, a really, really strong 3A football program. Well, could Southside beat them, every couple of years? Oh yeah. But they could also get a bunch of kids hurt, Atlantic Collegiate over here, obviously most people know now my 18-year-old goes to school there. He competes for a high school league's athletics program, but he still, goes to school during the day. They've got about 420 kids enrolled right now. And they've got a big contingent from the North Myrtle Beach zone. They've got, a pretty decent contingent from Socastee, but they're going to school in a church. Their building's not going to be done until next year.
Right.
And which means that their enrollment numbers are going to stay down. Ultimately, they want to build up to 700. And if you figure even conservatively that a third of those kids are out of zone because they're not in the Carolina Forest zone, what's that going to do to them? So I think that, when you're talking about kind of the side effect, just the cause and effect, there are going to be some goofy things. I still believe, based on my information, that Abbeville is going to drop down to 1A. Abbeville is a powerhouse in football.
Right.
It took an absolutely loaded Gray team to knock them out of the playoffs. So I think that by next Thursday, we're going to have a pretty clearer picture. It sounds like, from everything I gathered today, is that tomorrow the parameters for how realignment is going to be conducted are going to be announced. And then what they'll do next week is they'll announce which schools are in which classifications. They will not announce region affiliation yet, because in their mind, if a team has an appeal, they're going to be appealing based on the class, not because they don't like getting paired with so-and-so in a region.
Right.
So
we don't want to have to travel to Silver Bluff or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and it's like one of the, team a little closer to y'all, that's a good kind of point of emphasis would be Stall. Stall should have been 4A, and they appealed to move up because of travel purposes. We also know that Stall is, year in and year out, one of those 5A teams that's just absolutely going to struggle, but in their mind, it's better to struggle in 5A and not win a lot of games than it is to break the bank, on travel. We may
and they might struggle just as much in the 4A region, honestly. I mean, they're not really going to be competitive in most sports in that region either. So you might as well stay close to home.
And I think that's why they've been allowed to do that to this point, because unless they were to drop to 3,
right.
A lot of teams don't want to make that jump from 3A to 4A, but in a lot of sports, going from 4A to 5A is pretty interchangeable. I think what the biggest thing that's going to come out of realignment this time around is going to be that we are going to see fewer of those exemption moves, just because we can't put the multiplier in place. We can't say, finally, we're doing the right thing to help the rural 1A and 2A schools. And then, oh, by the way, if you're 3 or 4 or 5 and you want to move around, we're just going to let you do that now. I mean, the whole point of this was to streamline it. And the reason the multiplier got approved was because they finally decided that streamlining it was better than just trying to cherry pick the charters and the privates out of that. It's obviously going to affect a pretty big number of traditional publics as well, but that's the casualty in this. So I think when you roll,
I think it's all fair if you do that. Really, I mean, you can't on one hand say, well, it's not fair that you recruit out of your zone, and then go out and do the same thing and expect them to be, penalized for it, not you. So, I mean, I think that's really the only way that that they could have done it without really creating a fairness issue. And as we know, it's also like actually in the state constitution that way. So like they had to be very careful with how they worded this ruling such that it didn't, treat the charters and privates differently than the publics, or at least the charters, right? They're the ones that by law have to be treated the same as publics.
Well, and that's the thing is if you only did it to the privates, you're only affecting 4 schools. It's Christchurch, St. Joe's, Southside Christian, and Bishop England. I mean, congratulations, you got 4 out of there. So, I think that I think it had to be done. I do think that there's going to be some pretty upset people next Thursday, though, and that was probably going to happen no matter what. But I think now when that Department of Education numbers come across, I think that I think that there's going to be some people that are like, I had no idea. I had no idea we had that many out of zone kids. I had no idea what kind of impact it could be. You're automatically talking about a bare minimum, an absolute bare minimum of 4 Class 1A programs that are going to be bumped up. And, that's not to say any traditional 1As, that have out of zone. I mean, nobody talks about James Island charter, because most of their kids, it's something like,
they're going 5A.
Kids. Well, James Island, all but 4 or 5 of their kids live on the island. They're in the zone. So James Island's, they're a charter, but they're not really going to be affected. Fox Creek charter, however, might have a few more, another small rural charter school, academic magnet, Greenville High School, South Florence High School, there are a lot of these schools that have a countywide draw, whether it's for an IB program like Aner, it could be the magnet status. It could be a choir program. I mean, anything that draws kids in, it doesn't matter if they play sports or not. Your zone's now affected.
So many different factors that maybe you didn't consider.
That's right.
That eventually play into this. But you like how the high school league eventually came up with the format of how to decide, the system that they're using with multipliers. Just your overall thoughts on the plan that the high school league devised to make this happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was the safe move that got the multiplier in. It doesn't violate, the proviso from 2021. It doesn't violate the Charter School Act of 1996. And those were the 2 biggest things. I mean, obviously anybody who follows me on Twitter during one of these executive league, committee meetings knows that I don't hold my tongue. And it's because we wasted so much time talking about things that couldn't be done because people just wanted to be able to go home and tell their people I stuck it to them. I showed Gray a thing or two today. Well, no, you didn't. All you did was just talk, and it's hot air, you know.
Yeah.
In the end of the day, what mattered was that the multiplier is in. The meaning of the multiplier can be intact. Is it going to hit some traditional schools? You bet. But it's going to make sure that the schools that have open enrollment zones are not playing on the same fields as, you know, in the playoffs, at least, against schools that don't have that luxury.
Right on, man. Well, we appreciate your time tonight on the fly. Called you in a pinch out of the bullpen, and you came through clutch. You're my man, Ian Guerin, all the way back to Mizzou.
Well, I'll tell you what, if Tua Tagovailoa had been playing a little better, I might have said no, but I think my fantasy team is shot for tonight anyway. So, hey, let's go have this conversation instead.
You can still get those fourth quarter prize picks in. Try to win a few bucks. Hit up Rietveld for the best bets.
This is the extent of my sports wagering. So, yeah, this is it.
All right, man. You have a good one, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Ian Guerin from Prep Red Zone and I don't know what he is, media director, I guess, media coordinator for the Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl, and a great friend of mine all the way back to Mizzou. We go way back.
Yeah,
so
I've
always
really
great to talk with him.
And just a great guy, and just really fun to talk to, get to know, and you know all the hats that you have to wear for an event like this to put it on. I mean, it's like I said, it's not just a football game; it's a whole weekend of activities that they do over there. So, credit and props to what he does to make it all happen.
They get after it. Yeah, awesome stuff. He's the man for the job. I mean, he's really plugged in around the state and loves to call and chat with people, and we have regular catch ups to, you know, trade notes about what's going on around the state. But thanks also to Zion Dobson. The internet was not his friend tonight, but we were able to get a few good minutes with him and hear his perspective on being a finalist for Mr. Football and playing in the North-South All-Star game, catching a touchdown pass. So that was awesome. We'll also try to catch up with KJ Chisholm and Kayvon Chisholm at some point. KJ has committed to Jackson State.
Congratulations to him, and also shoot out with 5 tackles, pass block, PBU, and that Roberts Bowl, then Jeremiah Curry from Bluffton with pair of tackles. So, you know, just wanted to mention
Kayvon had 3 tackles, a sack, and 2 tackles for loss, I believe, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, monster.
But, you know, great to see our entire crop of local stars showing up in a game like this, and you know, especially for those other guys. Jeremiah Curry, well earned. You know, that's a guy who certainly has deserved a moment like what we saw, and the fact that he was able to go out there and put on a successful performance. That's it's a good showing for his program, and you know, he did a lot for that Bluffton team over the years. So good to see him get honored. And KJ Chisholm, just that guy did a little bit of everything this year for Whale Branch, and absolute incredible competitor. And that guy, he plays both ways for you, and he left it all out there, and that's what you want to see in that last game, and to put on a heck of a show against your you know, the most talented peers from the state of South Carolina. Yeah. So congratulations to them.
Yeah, that defense brought it too, and Kayvon. I also wanted to shout out that we did have some offers come through. I saw that a couple of Bluffton guys got offers from our friends up at Hampton Sydney. Wyatt Tant and Owen Bays both got offers from Hampton Sydney up in Virginia, where Malik Frost just finished up and is now in the transfer portal. He's got a year of eligibility as a graduate student. So looking forward to seeing where Malik lands to finish out his career and continue his education. That's another just outstanding young man who came through the Lowco, and it's been awesome to watch him flourish up there at Hampton Sydney. Hayden Shen was there for a little bit, and now he's QBing the South Carolina club team. Yeah, club gang. Gamecocks. I believe Matty Scarpa is on his offensive line as well. So we got a bunch of Lowco guys playing club football up there in Carolina. But let's shout out some sponsors. We got to hit up the MVP sponsors of LowcoSports, starting, of course, with my wife, Megan Jarrett, the official realtor of LowcoSports. She's with Keller Williams of the Lowcountry, and she is ready to help you find your place in the Lowco, whether it's a starter home or your forever home, maybe even an investment property. The market is turning around. It is a great time to buy. You can still negotiate, but the rates are dropping, and the sale prices have not started spiking up just yet. So get in there right now. Get in the database with Megan Jarrett, the official realtor of LowcoSports and the queen bee of the Lowco Hive. We'll get you a search set up and find you the perfect home. And then just to make sure it is perfect, we'll call on our friends at Homegrown Home Inspections. Jan Lucas and his team provide great expertise and customer service to every home inspection. So let them be your eyes and ears and your biggest advocate until move-in day at Homegrown Home Inspections. And then we'll sign the papers with Mickelson Law Firm, the official closing attorneys of LowcoSports and our original sponsors since 2017 when we got this thing off the ground. We appreciate Ryan and Tiffany and all they do in the community. They can help you with all your legal needs at Mickelson Law Firm. And then Hospice Care of the Lowcountry, our favorite charity and our official hospice provider of LowcoSports. I love this place and these people. The CEO, James Dismond, is a great friend, and he leads a terrific team over there. Sharonica Gavin, shout out. Great people over there at Hospice Care of the Lowcountry, where it's not about dying, it's about living. Wes, those are our MVP sponsors. And let's talk a little hoops. We talked a lot of USCB hoops last night on the Sand Shark Rewind. So if you want to get in the weeds on that, you can check that out over on the Lowco Media YouTube network. But let's talk some high school hoops because we'll get a bunch more tomorrow night before we do the Lowco Hoops Report. So let's talk about what happened, particularly on Saturday, because we haven't really had a chance to discuss that. Anything that caught your eye? Obviously, May Rivers sweeping Beaufort was interesting. I think the Beaufort boys used it all up in that comeback against Whale Branch on Friday. Just didn't have enough gas left in the tank.
One question about one of the girls' scores. Was the cross schools they beat St. Joseph?
No, they lost. They lost. I fixed it in one place, but not there.
Okay.
They lost.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say that would have been quite a win for cross if they knocked off a St. Joseph's team that has been one of the better schools in 1A, but still, a strong fight for a cross team that has really blown my expectations away from, especially what they did the day before on Friday. And you saw them in person when they took down Beaufort Academy 80-41. That was
it was pretty impressive. It was 14-0 before BA really knew what hit them. It was pretty impressive. They run the floor really well. I mean, PJ is a killer. Mrs. Wilson can get it, from wherever she wants it, pretty much in that league. The Maldonado girls they just get out. The Maldonado and Hollings girls both just get after it. They just play hard, and Matthew Fisher Davis is taken over that program now, and he's just so chill over there on the sideline. But they go out there and get after it. So I don't know who's going to beat them in Skis 1A. I'm not sure there is anybody. They're right there with everybody in the area. They wouldn't beat HHCA, but they play JP2, a pretty close game. They're right there with any of the Skizas and most of the publics.
Yeah, I mean they got to be really close from some of those other schools that you mentioned, these Lowco squads. I think that Cross has certainly the ability, the great coaching that we saw over there. They have produced they brought over a couple of excellent coaches to lead the way. So I'm impressed with what I saw for Cross. But going back to some of those Saturday games, I don't know what to describe the word but I want to use, but it was quite a game on the boys' side. Maybe over Beaufort, certainly a little. Maybe a little rust, you could say, in these teams trying to really get back into, their top form. But still some solid performances. Gage Duncan with 14 to power the Sharks, but certainly I think both teams left that one thinking they could have played a bit better, especially in terms of holding on to the basketball. But that's what these early season games are for. You're trying to really find your identity as a team and improve together. And this Buford team, I think there's a lot to be said for how they could potentially perform this year, especially with Samari Bonds. If he's able to stay on his game and produce, he had 12 points, so certainly not a bad game for Samari. But if they're able to cut down those mistakes, turnovers, and find good shots and produce, put the ball in the bucket, because that's. I think the recipe is there for this Buford team to do something special. I've seen it before, and Jeremy Huff's a great coach, so I think he'll get this team, towards the right direction when we get into region play. And also on the boys' side, Hilton Christian Academy with a nice win, 54-47. Lawrence, Harry Skinner with a whopping 26. I'm sure he was lining up with a really productive game across the stat line. So. That's a solid victory for Hilton Christian Academy. I still haven't seen them because they didn't play Friday night home. They play on the road.
They've been road warriors.
Home and all.
What impressed me is Battery Creek. They had a nice little back-to-back. The Battery Creek boys, they beat Ridgeland Hardyville by 16 on Friday night, turned around Saturday afternoon and beat Bluffton 44-39 in a scrap. It looks like that game was not pretty either, kind of like that. But I think when you have a team playing a back-to-back like that, you're going to get some kind of sluggish, sloppy play. But that's really gritty by Battery Creek. Elijah Mathis had 13. Gabe Leggett had 10. Kelvin Willis had 13 rebounds and 5 steals. He only had 3 points, but that is a contribution right there.
I kind of talked about that in the State Shark Rewind last yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. With Shania Rose and her making big contributions when her offense wasn't there. You need that guy to do that yeoman's work and get those boards. So I like what's happening over there. CJ Brown obviously is a big energy guy, a big motivator. And I saw Ryle Owens taking some pride as well for what we're seeing from that team, because he worked with them a good bit in the off season. So it's just cool to see that grassroots effort paying off for those guys who have been invested in the kids, and now the kids have been investing in themselves and in the program, and to see them have success. So that's outstanding. Hampton County also swept Colleton County on Saturday. Girls won by 15, guys won by 21. So those are nice wins for Hampton. Hampton boys are 5-2, and those only losses are to Hilton Head and Bluffton, and a couple.
And those were close games. One went to overtime, one went to the final seconds, corner 3 to win it. So they could be sitting here in the feed right now, if not for like 2 plays. So yeah,
Jeremiah Faber's got to be happy to get KJ Chisholm back too.
Oh yeah, for sure. But this Hampton County team, they and just looking at Class 2A, obviously you got the as we mentioned at the top, the Great Collegiate Hillside Collegiate. But I mean, I'm starting to feel good about what Hampton could do this year in 2A, because you just that kind of top level athleticism, just depth you don't see as often at that classification. So I think Hampton is set up well to succeed in this region, and then hopefully into the playoffs. So it's been good to see him. And then that game in Hilton Head, of course, he didn't have Kayvon either in that game because he was at North South. So the potential is
that's right. The game against Bluffton was 2 days after they lost to Oceanside. So
they haven't played their best yet, and so we just figure if they get to playing their best basketball in late February, it could be fun over there. Once again, another deep run is possible for the Hurricanes in their first season this time on the basketball court. So I'm pumped to see what they can do.
Here's a score that I hadn't seen yet, but JP2 on Saturday, I didn't have this on my schedule. They beat Bethesda 66-54, the boys. 17 second half points from James Kiefer and a game high 18. So he scored all 17 of his points in the second half, and a game high 18 from freshman Daniel Godson. They came back to win 66-54 after trailing 30-17 midway through the second quarter. Sophomore Logan Cotter, baseball kid I know, had timely shots and drew multiple offensive fouls. 6th win on the season. They're 6-5 now. So outstanding start for that JP2 program.
Man, that 3-team region could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that JP2 can knock off either of those teams, but they're going to fight them. They're going to play them tough. And, with Hilton Head Prep, the way they play, a couple possessions at the end of the game can steal a game from them.
They will. I just always thinks back to what happened in that Lawrence Manning crazy playoff game a few years ago when they just held on to the basketball and weird stuff happened. But there is a formula if you want to hang tight against Hilton and Prep.
And then just if you can steal a couple possessions at the end, you can pull it off because points are just at such a premium. So we'll see. I mean, I think they're an interesting team to watch for sure. With the confidence they have now. Tilton, obviously a leader. He's healthy now, and they've got some nice pieces around him with the young kids. So that's been fun. Let's shout out some more sponsors, and then we'll talk a little wrestling. We've got the varsity sponsors. We've got DDS Web Design for us, all of us who are online all the time. If you have a website and it's just not getting the performance that you're looking for, go to ddshhi.com and you can submit to get a free website analysis. They'll send it to your email and let you know where the lag may be happening, why you're not getting the results you're looking for, and give you some options to boost your search engine optimization to help you get your website found and your business found online so that you can do more and think bigger. They love to work with businesses and nonprofits, so hit them up at ddshhi.com. And the Parker Law Group are our friends who have been serving folks with their legal needs across Hampton, Colleton, and Jasper counties for years, and they've jumped on board to support us and allow us to continue to expand our coverage in those counties and shine a light on more deserving teams and student athletes around the Lowcountry. Like these wrestlers, we had some champs come back to the Lowco this weekend, and I will say Truman took an L tonight. It was a scrimmage. They didn't have anybody at his weight, so he bumped up a weight class and lost a tough 3-2 match. But those are the ones that make you better when you got to wrestle a guy who's a little bigger and stronger than you. And I really felt like he out-wrestled him, but he just couldn't out-muscle him a couple of times and power through to get the points. So came up just short, but we'll be back at it on Saturday. We got a tournament Saturday at Hilton Head. High schools and middle schools are all going to be there. So that's going to be really fun for the kids to get to see the big kids who are showing out there. And we had some great results over the weekend, starting with at the Northwood Invitational. We had 4 teams up there, and we brought home 6 titles. Nice. JP2 had 3 champs and finished second among 10 teams behind North Central. I say 3 champs. One of them was at 88 pounds, which is not a high school weight class, but it was listed in the varsity. So I'm not sure how to handle that. But Chase LaFountain won it at 88, which is my son's middle school weight class. Daniel Snyder won it at 132, and Renzo Cedeno at 190. Golden Warriors had a bunch of placers. Hayes Kiefer was second. Jace Reynolds was third. Brian Ordo was fourth. Jack Hannigan was fourth. Alex Mercer was third. Brandon Horton was second. Chris Ordo was third. Gavin Byrne was fourth. So I told you in the beginning of the season, they had a huge roster. They took a bunch of guys and they placed a bunch. Buford came in fourth with Antonio McKnight winning the title. Our guy, Jacob Alfonso, Jay's Barbershop representative with the championship at 113. And Carter Sims from Colleton Prep took it at 157. So solid showings from the Lowco guys at Northwood.
Yeah. That's great, and to see that, consistency across some of our area teams and the growth of the sport. It's been really fun. Bluffton showing out, Hilton Head High with a solid performance. Bryce Stevenson winning at 113, and then you got May River in the duels at Cane Bay, and to see all those guys getting pins. Echevarria with a really strong outing. Morrow with
he had 4 pins, 4 for 4 with 4 pins. I believe McCallum was also 4 for 4 with 4 pins. Rudisil had 3 pins and a forfeit. The freshman, he's really solid. Morrow had a good day. Dylan Seaman had a good day. Ryan Seaman had a couple pins at 106. So they got some guys. Michael Sands also National Merit semifinalist. He got a pin as well. So got to shout out those smarty pantses. But we're off to a real solid start to the wrestling season. Jay's like, let's go. Yeah, Jacob is tearing it up. He's a baby too. He's wrestling up in age. But he's a stud. And then we also had some, as you mentioned, May River went 3-1 at the Cane Bay duels. Hilton Head was 6 out of 12 at the Red Fox with 5 guys placing, which is solid. Bluffton 12th out of 24 at a really tough Effingham County Rebel Invitational. They had 4 guys placing in the top 6, which was no easy task. Gabe Fulton was 3rd at 165. I got his little brother, McCracken. He's a dog. He got beat tonight, but he's tough. He was giving up some weight. Beaufort had 7 placers, so that's solid. Bunch of runners up: Calvin Garcia, Chase Richardson, Brandon Bowles, and Jaden Priester. So good stuff there. But we're going to talk a lot more wrestling on Wednesday night after a bunch more local matches on the debut of the Lowco Grind presented by Reverence Wrestling Club. Put out a call to action. I said it's time for a wrestling podcast. Can we get some sponsor support? And we got some sponsor support, a good bit, enough to get it off the ground. We're always looking for more. So if you would like to be one of the sponsors of the inaugural wrestling podcast, Lowco Grind, we're also going to mix in some MMA from time to time, all the combat sports, and just give that community a place to talk about what's happening here in the Lowco. So really excited for that.
Yeah, I'm pumped to get on Wednesday and get this thing rolling, because we've been talking about being in the works for a while, and wrestling has been such a quickly growing winter sport here, and obviously we've had a lot of coverage on basketball, but certainly wrestling deserves its own show for how much these kids are really starting to perform on the mat, and the pipelines that we're seeing for these young boys and girls who are doing big things at a young age. So I just think it's a potential like sleepy giant kind of thing where this area could really take off in these next few years in wrestling, or at least at the minimum compete year in year out for state championships. And we've seen May River grow into a dynasty, or at least close to one. A dynasty here,
lower state dynasty, kind of. Yeah.
But obviously East Side has been racking up the titles, but the Sharks have been, right there, and they've been cleaning up in that region these last few years. And
I'll give them perennial power, short of dynasty, but perennial power.
Yes, there's the step below. The step below you can call it for them. But Ashley Powell's done a great job. Their coaching staff has done terrific work as well. So, that's a program that I hope to continue to improve. And then you got a Hilton Head revitalized program with Mr. Newton, who has had a lot of success over the years during his past tenure, and then Bluff and Neil Nutter. That's a program that's doing some big things as well. So, and then the JP2 team has really once again exceeded my expectations this year. So we're in a great spot, and I think it's the perfect time, to really take a step forward with our wrestling coverage and get more guests on here and get more, wrestling centric individuals. And there's certainly an audience for this now, seeing by the turnout that you're mentioning, these kids and these parents and these wrestling fans are showing out at these meets. It's become a passionate, getting to the level that, not quite. Wrestling was absolutely huge in your neck of the woods in Kansas. That's the level I want to see here. I want to see that level of excitement, and I think we are starting to kind of see that. Because I've been to some meets.
The energy level, the excitement level is definitely there. It's still a niche sport. It's still a small community, but the community that's into it is invested, and that's what we're seeing. And we're seeing more and more kids become invested. And it can be a scary sport for people who aren't familiar with it. And unfortunately, we had a young man from McCracken who was injured. Injured his arm fairly significantly tonight and had to leave in a stretcher. And it was a fluky thing that happens from time to time, but happens in every sport. I've seen noses broken in basketball, and, very serious injuries in football, obviously, and lacrosse and everything else. So soccer, you can get laid out in soccer. And it was an unfortunate fluky accident with the young man tonight, and we certainly wish him the best. You hate to see it because he's a first-year wrestler and probably won't go back to the sport now, you would think. But I can count on one hand, as I told my paranoid official realtor of LowcoSports tonight, who said, "Oh my gosh, what's going to happen to our baby?" I've seen it happen like twice, and I've been watching wrestling since I was 2 years old. And I've never. It's a very rare thing. Very rarely does a kid get hurt in wrestling because you just go over. If it starts to hurt, you go to your back. But it was just an unfortunate thing. But I think more and more parents and kids are seeing the value of it as a great cross-training sport. And then also a lot of kids who maybe just couldn't quite find their niche in other sports find their way to wrestling. And it's just unique in that it's such an individual sport. Even though you're obviously competing in a team setting, you get that vibe, but there's something for some kids about the pressure of a team relying on you that is too much. It's too much for them. The performance anxiety that it brings on is too much. But then you put them in an individual setting where they're only fighting for themselves, and they thrive because they take pride and they're not worried about letting anybody down. It's just for them. And so I've seen a lot of kids who struggled in team sports who really excelled in individual sports. And I think wrestling can be one of those. And as I mentioned before, it's great for smaller kids because you've been playing against bigger kids your whole life. And then all of a sudden you're in a fair fight and you're really prepared for that moment. And the confidence that comes from literal hand-to-hand combat coming out on top is incredible. But at the same time, some kids also get some needed humility from coming out on the wrong end of that. And so it's a terrific sport. I hope more kids continue to explore it, especially if they're not compelled to play basketball in the winter. It's a great way to stay active and be in terrific shape. The conditioning is unreal. Go roll around with somebody and try to get control of them for 4.5 minutes and let me see how you feel after. But it's a great sport, and Reverence Wrestling Club has been a great supporter of LowcoSports and a great supporter of wrestling in the Lowco community. So we hope you give them a shot. They're over behind the Duncan over on the Bluffton Parkway, and I got a great facility back there. So check them out, RWC. But anyway, Wes, let's shout out the Lowco Booster Club and then name some teams of the week and call tonight. The Lowco Booster Club is made up of the Court Lifestyle Pros, Lowcountry natives Daniel and Debbie Court, selling the Lowco lifestyle on Hilton Head Island. Check them out if you want to live the good life on the island. Barefoot Floor Care of the Lowcountry. If you got sticky, nasty floors, call friend Chris Odom and have a very pleasant conversation with him while he gets those floors so clean your feet will thank you. Barefoot Floor Care of the Lowcountry. Prime AV Hydration and Wellness is now open in Belfair Town Village, so no excuse to be dehydrated. Go see Max and get juiced up with all the vitamins and minerals that you need to get feeling right. And if your back is not quite right or you need to get cracked up, go see my guy, Dr. Ambrose Cole at Rooted Living Wellness. He's the best chiropractor I know and one of the best dudes, too. He'll get you feeling better, mind, body, and spirit. Eagle Creations is one of the best kept secrets in the area. If you need promotional items or custom apparel for your business, or if you'd like some Proudly Southern custom gift baskets to give out to friends and family for the holidays, you can get those at Eagle Creations. And Jay's Barbershop, the place to be in Ridgeland. If you need a haircut or if you just want to hang out and hear some great conversation, I'm sure they'll be talking about the Giants tomorrow, whatever's going on in that game. Win, lose, or draw, they'll be trashing on the Giants in Jay's Barbershop.
Sure. I'm say this. I'm happy for one time with his Cowboys looking pretty good.
Yeah.
Dallas Cowboys.
One time got the dub last night.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I care about the Cowboys is because I know that one time's mood is so dramatically tied to the Cowboys results. He's crying about. You crying about the Giants or about one time dog walking in there to talk trash this week. Which one you crying about? But just dogs. But all right, Wes. We've done enough damage. Let's both, he says. Let's name our teams of the weekend. Call tonight. What do you say?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with my girls team first. The one I saw on Friday night, Hilton Head. It's an easy choice, Hilton Head Christian Academy. I mean, this was supposed to be a close-ish game against Cardinal Newman. It was another easy one. So it seemed there for HHCA because the big three turned up, and it was really started from the very jump because Tamaya Hutchinson, 20 points, Devin Yard, 19, was popping off from three, 10 points in that first quarter. Morgan Scott, what a tremendous inside presence that she has, been a part of and really laid down for the Eagles for her 10 years so far. And, a solid 8 points for her. And it's just effortless sometimes the way they've been able to operate the offense and passing the basketball, distributing the ball, and the way they just work seamlessly. That comes from a good amount of experience being with each other, and it's really starting to show in this senior year where Devin's had to carry the load. She's had to score more points and produce more with her offense when you don't have some of the other players that she's been able to play with the Abby Paduzzi's and some of those she's been she saw a lot of talent come through here, and Kara Shelton was there when she was a freshman, I believe. So she's seen a lot, and good for her to really take control of the team that she has now, and they're rolling so far to start the year. Then for the boys, I'm gonna go with your Battery Creek Dolphins, ending the week strong, picking up a solid win over Ridgeland, and then before that, taking care of business and pulling out a nice. They beat Ridgeland, and then they beat Bluffton the next night on Saturday. Elijah Mathis really showing out. Kevin Willis, as you mentioned, just scored 3, but the production that he had on the glass, picking up 13 boards, helping out defensively with 5 steals, putting a couple guys in double figures. Really impressed by what I've seen from Coach Brown and this Battery Creek team. That's a solid Bluffton squad. Still trying to find their way. They knocked off Hampton County, but that's still a pretty good core there on that Bluffton team. So to do that, to come in and pick up a really nice win over the Bobcats, that certainly, gets me thinking about how solid this Battery Creek team could be, and looking to potential a couple of Donniebrooks against Beaufort in that region.
Yeah, I think it could be really competitive. It looks like they're pretty evenly matched as far as just kind of the personnel. They both got some shifty guards, and they both got some nice bigs. They aren't going to like blow you away, but they're just nice, solid workman-like bigs. They have nice pieces. I think Samari's probably the best player on that floor in that game, but Elijah Mathis is pretty electric, and like it's going to be a really fun matchup. I like the way both those teams are playing right now. Beaufort has exceeded expectations for me. I mean, just looking at that roster, you expected a drop off, but they've been right there. I think they're still figuring some stuff out, but you can see some real potential there. So that's going to be a really fun region across the board on the boys' side. It's going to be very competitive with hand-to-hand. North Charleston, they'll give you a fight every time, especially when you go up there. And Philip Simmons is a budding power, I think, in 3A if they don't move up at realignment. So yeah, good choices there. I'm struggling. I'm kind of in between on a few different teams on the girls' side. But I think I'm going to throw love at May River. I don't know how many opportunities we're going to have to do that this year because they are very young. But they beat Beaufort twice this week, and Beaufort's down, but those are games that they have to win. That program needs to win right now. And they won the first one convincingly by 20. And we were like, whoa, they won the second one by 33, 44-11, just dominant defense. Now, Buford's without Nia Housel, who, in my estimation, is their most important player. And I think that score kind of reflects that. They also lost to Whale Branch the night before, I think. Is that right? No, they beat Whale Branch by 2 the night before. So yeah, that's a good win for a young May River team. Brooke Dalton with 14, Liz Duncan with 12. She continues to really play well as a 9th grader. So that's promising for those young ladies. I don't know how many they're going to get in region play, but I think more than I thought a couple weeks ago. So that's a good sign for them. I was also considering Hampton girls because they're starting to put it together a little bit too.
Yeah, I was.
They beat Hilton Head on the road and then got Colleton again at home.
Yeah, Lyric Jones, I really was impressed with what she could do, but that Hilton Head team put up a strong fight as well. Obviously the record kind of shows that they've been struggling, but the 2 games I saw them play at home were neck and neck, and they fought and clawed to get back in them because they were down close to double digits both those games. But Myra Roten is a sharpshooter from 3. She has made a couple of big-time buckets.
She lit it up the other night. Had like 21, right?
Yeah, and then Deja Godson's really starting to settle in you can't replace Linda Young. You just can't. She's a prolific rebounder, scorer, defender. You can't really replace. So it's going to have to be a couple of other producers that really help fill that void. So for Russell Renzuski, he's got a heck of a task ahead of him for this team.
I think for guys, I got to go HHCA.
Yeah,
I was thinking about Hampton. The HHCA, that's a solid showing there, beating Lawrence Manning by 17, and then coming back the next day and beating Florence Christian, who's usually pretty tough. They're playing back to back too, but still, you gotta. It's a challenge nonetheless to come back and play well the next day. Harrison Skinner is the truth. He had 19 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals against Lawrence Manning, and then he had a monster game with 26 points against Florence Christian, 26 out of 54, almost half of them. And it's a team with some weapons. Elijah White, 14 points and 10 boards against Lawrence Manning, 8 points. I looked at Ethan White instead of Elijah. 15 points and 8 boards against Florence Christian. So, nearly a double-double.
That one for Caden Turner.
Double in the first. Caden Turner, that's what I was getting to. 7 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, 7 steals, 4 blocks.
Almost flirting with a quad double. Maybe it's still a little bit off, but we played like NBA minutes.
Yeah, he needed 4 more assists. That was going to be yeoman's work, but that's a sick line nonetheless. So shout out to those HHCA boys. I'm looking forward to seeing them get back home. I think the Road Warrior thing is going to help them, but they are at home. They got a good one at home against Hammond this week. Hammond comes in on Friday night, so that's a cool game. We got a bunch of Loco and Locos though, so we'll see. But fun game nonetheless. All right, man. Well, I think that'll do it for tonight. Great show as always. Enjoyed talking with Zion for a few minutes, and Ian Guerin. Always great to catch up with my old friend and hear him talk about South Carolina high school football, because I do know a lot about it, especially the ins and outs and all the politics and all that stuff. I try to stay out of it and just let him catch me up. But great to talk with him, and always great to talk hoops and wrestling with US. Thanks so much to all of our sponsors, to all of our guests, and to all of you who show up to listen or watch. You're the reason why we keep doing it. I'm going to call it a night for Wes Kerr. I'm Justin Jarrett. Till next time, go Lowco.
The Lowco Sports Lowdown podcast is a production of Lowco Media LLC and LowcoSports.com, an independent media outlet providing grassroots local sports coverage in the South Carolina Lowcountry. We are sustained by community support from sponsors and patrons like you. Get in the game with a monthly pledge of $1 or more at patreon.com/LowcoSports to keep us going and growing. Go Lowco.